and welcome back to the second bonus module. And the second bonus module is about the stress bucket and sleep. This is, again, as with balance and these other things, being aware of what we're thinking about and how we're behaving and how this is affecting and impacting on our life and our emotional and mental and physical state helps us to make the changes we need to. And there don't need to be changes all at once, just little by little by little. There is a brilliant book which is in the a reading list called The Compound Effect, which explains about how it's not what you do once in a while that makes a difference in your life, it's what you do every single day. And it's how we think and behave that every single day, just the little things that has the impact on our life. And the reason I want to talk about the stress bucket is partly because I was having this conversation with a client this week. It is not necessarily the big things that are going in your stress bucket. You know, when I say about, you know, what the negative things that we focus on, the negative forecasting and the negative introspecting about the past. When we do that, when we think in negative terms, it's that negativity that we convert into anxiety. And it's the anxiety that we fill up the stress bucket with. And it's your brain interprets your negative thinking or negative forecasting as some sort of emergency crisis or danger. It doesn't know the difference between you worrying about a bill that's due to arrive next week or worrying about the mortgage being paid. It doesn't know the difference between that and worrying about a saber-toothed tiger turning up on your doorstep. The feeling of anxiety and the anxiety you create is exactly the same. It's our blueprint because, you know, 10, 15, 20, 100,000 years ago, it wouldn't have been a bill turning up on the doorstep, would it? It would have been genuine danger. It would have been the danger of not being able to survive. So we still have this blueprint in our brain that it interprets the way we're thinking and what we're thinking about. If it's negative, it will interpret it as some sort of emergency crisis or danger, convert it into anxiety, create anxiety, which goes in our stress bucket. Now, when I say that to you, it may be that some big things have jumped into your mind. Maybe it is the mortgage being paid. Maybe it is something at work that's worrying you. Maybe it's something with the children or your spouse or your partner that's on your mind. The big things are obvious and we focus on how to get rid of them. But when we talked about focus, it's not focusing on what's wrong. You need to focus on what's right and on yourself. And we talked about balance in the other bonus module. It's focusing on yourself, getting yourself right, which will allow your intellect to then come up with solutions. Focusing on the problem is just going to make the problem grow because whatever we focus on grows. And it puts it in your stress bucket. Your stress bucket fills up. As your stress bucket gets over the max fill level, you move from your intellect down to your primitive brain that encourages you to focus on the problems. So can you see how all these parts are linked? And it all starts from how you're thinking. So thinking in a positive way won't fill up your stress bucket, but what we tend to fill up, we can spend a lot of time just chucking lots and lots of little things continually into our stress bucket. And it's those small things, sorry, it's got to shift a bit, it's those small things that tend to compound and fill up our stress bucket without us realising. Now, the sort of things I'm talking about can be something like somebody in another car cutting you up on the way to work, something that you've ordered not arriving when it's expected, or having one of those recorded delivery little cars land on your mat and then you've got to go and collect it. a shop not being open, or somebody run out of stock, or somebody not turning up when they're supposed to, or something being cancelled. Whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's the little tiny things. Now, if you let those small things worry you and upset you and affect you and irritate you and stress you out, they're going in your stress bucket. And those are the things that it's filling up. And when it does, the more and more it fills up, the more and more you move from the intellect to your primitive brain. And the problem becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, so you start focusing on it, and it fills up the stress bucket. Sometimes it overflows. Now, a stress bucket overflowing is a serious issue, because that's when we tend to have, however form it's going to come out in you, but we could have panic attacks or start forming physical problems. The more you've got in the stress bucket, the less efficient your immune system can work, the less you're able to resolve issues, and the more you're going to focus on problems. Now, we all need some stress in our life, okay? No stress at all actually is quite boring. We've got no reason to get up in the morning, nothing to do. We need a certain level of stress. And different people work at different levels. If you imagine you've got your stress bucket. So I've got I'll put a schematic on the screen. If you've got your stress bucket and you've got your max feel level. Now, some people operate constantly just under the max feel level. They're constantly in this this state of sort of control and stress, where they've got to get things done. Now, they can operate there, and they can operate there quite efficiently. And different people will have different levels where they operate at their most efficient. But if you're operating really close to your max feel level at any time, it just takes a little thing to tip you over the edge. Primitive brain steps in, takes control, and then it all starts going wrong. So even though you might think, well, I like to work under pressure. Working under pressure and working under pressure happily are two different things, and that's what we need to try and achieve, is this working. Yes, you can work under pressure, of having this state of being motivated and enjoying what you're doing, but not filling up your stress bucket with all the other things. If you've got a tight deadline, if you're in a really good place, okay, if you're looking after yourself, everything's good, you've got a really tight deadline, and you step up to the mark, and you're gonna meet that deadline, whatever happens. Right? So you're focused on what you're doing. The phone rings, and you've got to answer it. Right? Now, if you approach that from a positive perspective, you answer the phone, you answer it cheerfully, you explain to the person, okay, I'd love to chat about this, I'm on a deadline right now, can I call you back later? They will be fine about it. Or you can pick up the phone in a stressful grump, and you come across as impatient on the phone to people, and the conversation doesn't go well. They think it's about them if they're in a bad place, and you put the phone down, and now you go, oh, I'm not going to be able to get everything done, and you're filling up your stress bucket. The level goes up, gets to the max feel level. You go into your primitive brain, and then the task takes you 3, 4, 5 times longer than it needs to do, because you're not operating from the right part of your brain. And that all comes back to not putting these small underlying things in your stress bucket all the time. Just let them go. If it's something that you can't control or you can't do anything about, let it go. If it's something that it's not your job to do anything about, let it go. It's one thing that people put in their stress bucket quite a lot is other people's problems. They'll put them in their own stress bucket. You might be worrying about your mum or your sister or your children. The best way you can help them is being at your best yourself, because you will think clearly, you'll be able to give it good advice. What often happens is people in a situation, they put other people's problems in their own stress bucket and fill their own stress bucket up, so then they're not able to function efficiently and well enough themselves. So it is your job to not put stuff in your stress bucket to keep calm, happy and in control. But how do you empty it? It's something actually I haven't talked massively about over the weeks just because of the time, but it's something that is really important, and that is your sleep. We empty our stress bucket in our sleep. Now, if you're not overfilling your stress bucket, you will go to sleep at night, you will go into the REM phase of sleep, the bit when we're dreaming. It's the first part of phase of sleep we go into, the bit where we're dreaming, and everything will move from your stress bucket to your intellect. And your intellect, what it does is it strips the emotion out of it and it deals with it. And that's when you wake up in the morning and you see things from a different perspective. You know, I was saying sleep on it. You know, if you've had an argument with somebody, don't act. If something's upset you, don't do anything about it in the moment, in the emotional state. You wait until the emotion has subsided and then you can act rationally. That's exactly what's going on with your stress bucket as it's emptying in the REM phase of sleep at night. It's moving to your intellect so that when you pick it up and look at it again, you can act and behave and think rationally about it and logically rather than emotionally, because emotionally is not going to help you or whoever else is involved in this or the situation. So that's why we need to let things settle and let things move. Now, hypnosis or going into a trance contrives REM sleep, which is why we advise that when you're listening to a hypnotherapy track or hypnotherapy CD, the best time to do it is when you are ready to go to sleep at night. Because what will happen is you'll go into a trance, and as you're in a trance, your stress bucket will start emptying. And then, because you're in your normal place of sleep anyway, you will slip sideways into sleep, and then you will go into REM sleep, and you'll have another dose of bucket emptying stuff. You'll have a double dose of being able to empty your bucket, a double session, and then you just drift off to sleep. So, if you're listening to CD and you're saying, well, I just fall asleep, good. That's actually a good thing that can happen. Your subconscious will carry on listening way after your conscious brain has switched off. So that's actually fine, and that's why we listen to hypnosis tapes at night, so that we can get this bucket emptying done. So you need to constantly empty your bucket. If you're putting too much in, what will happen is if you only get 20% of your sleep to do this this REM phase of sleep. It's restricted. Children, it's much more, but as an adult, it's 20-25% generally of the sleep. So if you've got too much in there, if you've been putting too much in there, you won't be able to empty it. So what can happen is one of two things will happen, is your brain will wake you up in the middle of the night. You'll feel quite miserable. You'll be wide awake. You won't be able to get back to sleep, and all the stuff will start going over and over in your mind again. And you'll put it back in your stress bucket. You'll get back to sleep. You'll go into the REM phase of sleep, but can't empty the stress buckets. Your mind wakes you up again, and you go through this all through the night. If you're waking up about every hour and a half all through the night, this is definitely your stress bucket being overfilled, because that's how often generally you go into the REM phase of sleep. And then we end up exhausted, and that's the other thing that can happen. If you've been putting too much in, it's very, very enervating trying to empty the stress bucket. It's really hard work for your brain, and you end up exhausting yourself in your sleep. And then when you wake up in the morning, you're still tired, you can't wake up, you're mentally tired, and you just want to go back to sleep. Now what happens to people is they end up having a nap in the afternoon, which doesn't solve the problem actually, because they go back into the REM phase of sleep first. They don't necessarily empty the stress bucket because they got too much in there. They just end up exhausting yourself. Have you ever had a nap in the afternoon because you've been in this state, and you wake up and you feel awful? Put your hypnotherapy CD on when you're going to sleep at night, and it will help do this. Then you need to learn how to not put so much in the first place. You can get it empty, but you've got to stop putting stuff in, because it's you that's putting stuff in your stress bucket. Okay. Now how insomnia can occur is if you have been your stress bucket is overflowing all the time. you've been putting too much in because you've been too negatively forecasting the future, what will happen is that you will put your brain, it thinks there's some sort of crisis, emergency or danger all the time. So you will put your brain on this hyper alert, hyper vigilant state where it won't let you go to sleep. Now, if you think about if you were back in those primitive times and you were outside in the jungle hunting and there was danger all around and you decided that you were going to curl up in the grass and have a kip, your brain's not going to let you do that. It's going to go, you fool, it's dangerous out here, you can't go to sleep. And if you start to develop insomnia due to anxiety and stress, what you will find, and it can be, I've had clients that have had past big stressors and they have developed insomnia because of that, because these things are still in their stress bucket, they've never dealt with it. And it will stop us going to sleep because it will think that we've got to stay awake. We run on adrenaline all the time because we've got to be vigilant, and it will pick up on every little noise or sound in the night, every bump in the night, everything will wake you up. The slightest thing, you'll be awake because you're in this state of hyper alert or hyper vigilance, and things that would otherwise be normal to you, like your partner snoring or the cat coming in and out the cat flap or the dog snoring in the basket in the other room or something. Things that your brain would normally go, yeah, that's a normal noise. We always get that in the night. That's not danger. It will bring your attention to all these things, and every time there's a little noise, it will wake you up and you'll hear everything. And you'll say, oh, I'm a really light sleeper. You know the difference between this and waking up because the baby cries, for example, when there is something that you need to wake up for, which your brain will also scan for. But it can scan for that while you're in a relaxed state. But when it's in this hypervigilant state, it will keep waking up and it will stop you going to sleep in the first place. So again, it's empty your stress bucket. If you've gone through the series and you are still recognising these symptoms happening, get in touch. We'll get you in for a free initial consultation. Come along to one of the seminars, or even come along to one of the retreats, and we will help you get this sorted. And remember, it is a practice of constantly keeping this balance, making sure you're looking after yourself, having these positive activity, positive interaction, and positive thinking in your life, and making sure you build those things in. It's important. So have a fantastic week. Get in touch if there's anything I can help you with. Notice the good things. Get your stress bucket emptied. Stop putting so much in there in the first place. And enjoy.